Hi, this little video is taking us front to back in the unseen poetry part of our literature paper 2. This video is all about the application of it. I'm going to walk through a real life example and how I would pick it apart and how I would then turn that into a proper essay, a proper answer in our exam. If you have not already watched the video about the arts war techniques and how the arts war strategy to analysing a poem, you need to go and watch that first, because otherwise this will make no sense to you whatsoever. I'm going to be taking that approach, taking that structure and showing you how to use that in an actual exam. Right, what I want to do with you now is I want to go through exactly how I would use arts war in the exam to pick apart an unseen poem, alright? The first thing I would be looking at is the question, because the question gives you a massive clue. This one here says, in the richest poor man in the valley, how does the poet present ideas about living a happy and contented life? The examiner has given you a massive helping hand. They've just told you what this poem is about. They've just told you this poem is all about someone who is wanting to live a happy and contented life. And therefore that makes it much easier for you now to tie all of your ideas back to the central topic in the question. Now, we know from our English lessons that we are going to follow an arts war process, okay? And I'm going to write that down here so I can tick it off as I go, all right? It is really important that I go in the right order, and it's really important that I jump around, because I've got to get to here to get myself a grade 4. If I do not talk about these 4 things I can forget passing this part of my English literature course, okay? So, first of all, let's start with what it's about. Now, every poem works on a literal but also a metaphorical level. You need to be able to identify both if you want to be accessing the top marks, okay? So, feel free, read it a couple of times. I'll be honest, I had to read this poem 3 times for me to really truly understand the message and the meaning behind it, okay? But I can now conclude, what is it literally about? Well, it's literally about a man with not a lot, so I'm going to put a right man with little. He's got little physically. So he's only got a little, oh no, that's right. He's only got a little bit physically, but he's really rich morally and spiritually. He's really content with the life that he has, even though he hasn't got an awful lot of physical stuff with him, okay? So what's he a metaphor for? This guy here, he's going to be representing something wider. This poem here, this is old Lindsay McRae, this is her message to the world. She's created this person, this rich poor man, for a reason. What does he represent? Well, for me, he represents the man or the human that we all should aspire to be. Someone who is rich in their soul, someone who is rich in their heart, and that's the true measure of wealth and happiness. So it's a metaphor for all of us and our aims for a soulfully rich life, okay? Now, the great thing about the unseen poetry is you could come up with something completely different in your literal and your metaphorical meaning and it still be completely right. I read this and that's what I took from it. Someone else will read it and they'll take something else, and that is utterly fine, because as long as we can justify and explain our views, we can't be wrong. So that's what it's about. The next thing I need to do is my reader's reaction. Now that's the message. What is it that the writer is trying to tell us? What are they trying to communicate to us? And for me, this writer is telling us that internal joy and warmth, that is the thing that truly defines a happy life. Not anything external, not financial wealth, okay? Defines a happy life, okay? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little dotted line, because those 2 things, they're my introduction now, all right? That's how my introduction, when I come to do my write-up, is literally going to go 1, 2, 3. The first 3 sentences of my essay. Now I'm going to come on to the analysis, all right? First of all, I'm going to be looking for a technique. Now, by technique, I'm talking about figurative language, and there is always going to be loads of it in this poem, okay? Now, I've read through it, and there's a few contenders, okay? But I've decided I'm going to go for this here. His face was like a weather map. And the reason why I'm going to go for that one, like a weather map, is because that image, that idea of weather, that continues here, bad weather, and it continues here, fat with sun. Now, any time where a writer is continuing to use that same metaphor for an extended period of time, we call that an extended metaphor. So I'm going to put my T, I'm going to put my arrow down from there. I've got now an extended metaphor. And if I want to get specific as well, I've got like a weather map, so I've also got a simile in there. All right. Now, exactly like when I was analysing anything in my language questions, I'm going to follow now a focus, effect, link structure in my layer. I need all three if I'm going to get the marks. So I'm focusing on the extended metaphor. What's the effect? Well, I was thinking about the image of weather. Well, one of the things I think about when I think of weather is something that it's like a really small aspect of the day. My day today has it's not been a good day or a bad day because it's been a grey day in terms of it being quite cloudy, okay? The weather is not really significant to our happiness, okay? So I'm going to think of an image of something insignificant. And I'm also going to think of something that's really changeable. Weather changes all the time. Now that doesn't get me my marks. I've got my focus, I've got my effect, but now I need to link it back. Well, insignificant, that ties into how this idea of wealth and this idea of material gain, that doesn't make us a happy life. So insignificant reflects our material desires that are insignificant. They're not going to define us as people, but then also changeable in that our desires jump around, but our internal worth is continuous. Now, can you see that and I'm not rushing this, like literally this is exactly the amount of time I've been spending in my exam doing this, taking a minute, right, that method where I've got a couple of layers now, the things I'm going to say, and I've got a ready-made paragraph now ready. All I've got to worry about when I finish doing my analysis is getting that down as a paragraph, and I'll show you how to do that shortly. Okay? Next up, structure. Structure is all about the stanzas. So have a look at the stanzas and make it easy for yourself. Are they really, really clear? Are they really, really ordered? Or are they really erratic? Are they really chaotic? Now I'm having a look, okay? I've got 6 lines, I've got 3, 6, 8 lines, I've got back to 6 lines, and then I've got 4 at the end. I've got some lines that are 2 words long, I've got some lines that are really, really long. This is an erratic and chaotic structure. This is quite broken. But then if I go a little bit closer and have a little look internally, I've got a nice end stop, I've got an end stop, I've got an end stop, I've got an end stop. So I've got a really chaotic and erratic structure, which would reflect probably the chaos of our life if we desire more and more and more stuff. Maybe it shows an exterior of the chaos that comes with us in our insatiable desire for more and more and more and more and more. But actually, internally, the internal structure is really quite controlled. So that's where I'm going to go with that. And again, if you come up with something completely different, that is utterly fine. So I've got a chaotic structure, but internal control through the end stops. And again, that gives us a really nice ready-made point now that I can refer to in my answer about how the chaotic structure reflects his personality and his character. W. W is for a word. Now, what I would do for word is as I read through, I'd be looking for a word that kind of jumps out, a word that doesn't really belong with all the others, okay? And for me, I'm really interested in this word here, lies. Harry didn't care for things that other people prize, like money, houses, bank accounts, and lies. Lies doesn't belong. The rest of the thing is about him carrying his sheep up the mountains and his bank accounts and funerals of 1,000 diamonds. And then all of a sudden there is this like really powerfully loaded word, lies. So I'm going to let my eyes go to that and I'm going to talk about that, okay? Once again, I'm going back to my focus effect link now. Whenever I talk about a word, it is all about the connotations. Connotations of lies, where if someone's lying, that is a betrayal. That's the first thing I'm going to connote. Well, what does that? How does that reflect what we're talking about? That would show that this material desire betrays our own selves. we're betraying the richness of ourselves, we're betraying our own souls just by chasing more and more and more worth and more financial gain, well, that's just undoing the true worth, which is the thing that makes us as human beings, okay? But I'm also going to think lies being like a false illusion. People tell a lie because they don't want the ugly truth, the ugly reality to be known. It's a false illusion, which again reflects the external image of greed and material gains. Okay, right, doing well. I've done my A, I've done my R, done my T, my S, my W. Now I'm going to go on to my alliteration. All right, so the last A is for alliteration. Alliteration, again, there's several contenders, but I'm quite conscious that I have talked about the start, I've talked about the stanzas in the middle, I've talked about lies, which is about 3/4 of the way down. I've not gone near the end yet, so I'm going to show my examiner I'm able to dip into the full extent of the poem. I'm going to talk about this alliteration here, all right? Funeral, friends, tears, fell like 1,000 diamonds. Whenever I'm talking about alliteration, I'm talking about the sound. We've got the f sound. What does that echo? Well, that to me is echoing the tears of this funeral. That's echoing the sounds of people's sadness. So if I can read about their sadness and also hear it, well, that shows how complete and total people's devastation is at this person's loss, because he was a truly rich man in terms of companionship and in terms of his friendship. Okay, so we've got echoes, the crying and the sadness, and so we've got the idea of the total devastation at the loss of a man rich in companionship. That's the true worth, isn't it? Shown through that alliteration. My last one then is my rhythm and rhyme. Now, my rhythm and rhyme, if you get time, do both of them. If you don't get time, do one or the other, okay? Now, you've got to be a little bit more, you've got to be quite strategic here. We've got two things we can look at. We can look at the rhythm in terms of looking at the caesuras, which is any punctuation in a line of poetry, or the enjambment, which is a fancy French word for there being no lines of no punctuation in the poem. But I've already talked about that a little bit, because I've already talked about these end stops. So I'm going to make the tactical decision that I've sort of already covered that boat a little bit in terms of the examiner, in terms of can they see I can address the punctuation? Yes, they can. So I'm going to make the deliberate focus on the rhyme, okay? So let's have a little look. Have we got any rhyme? And as we read through it, there's nothing that rhymes here. There's nothing that rhymes here. We've got one tiny little bit of rhyme here. Look, prize lies, prize lies. One tiny little bit of alternate rhyme. We call that when there is another line in the middle it doesn't rhyme. But these two do rhyme. It's called alternate rhyme. And then we go back at the end to there being no rhyme at all. Now I'm thinking, well, if that's the one little bit of rhyme, why have they put that rhyme there? And now we go back to this idea of lies, and the lies belonging with money, houses, bank accounts, and all the things that people desires. So we've got this isolated, solo, single piece of rhyme, and that is the only place where there is the isolated desires and like the desires and wishes, material wishes and wants of this person, and all the rest of it is the soulful, warm, natural images of the clouds and the black mountain and the sheep and the dogs and the weather. All those other things, they're the priceless, untouchable things that make this guy a rich man. This is the only bit of material, and this is the one bit of rhyme. So I'm going to put those two ideas together, and I'm going to put those two ideas in that we've got an isolated rhyme on the focus on the material desires. And so I'm going to link those two ideas together, that it is this desire that truly isolates us. And I can say that it isolates us from our world, so from the other people around us, because whilst we're chasing material gains, we're not truly being a part of that community and that world. But it also isolates us from ourselves, because for every moment that we're chasing something physical, we're not actually investing in our spiritual, in our soul, in our true worth and happiness. Okay? Look, that is what your exam paper should look like. Maybe you might do it in slightly short term, but I have taken the first 10 minutes or so of my exam to properly lay out my arts war. All my ideas are here now. Now all I've got to do is, in the last half an hour of this section, is get this down as an essay, which I'll show you how to do now. And then I'm ready to start writing. Now, the beauty of Arts War is not only is it giving you the route map for your annotations and your analysis, it's also giving you your essay structure. We're going to go in the Arts War order, so therefore we're going to start off with what the poem is about and then our reader's reaction. That's going to serve as our introduction, so we're going to leave a line at that point because we've established there to the examiner what our basic understanding of the poem on a literal or metaphorical level and its message to the reader. And then we're going to get our marks for the nitty-gritty analysis. Technique, structure, again, there's our line, because in our heads we're thinking, once we've done the arts, once we've done ARTS, in our head we're thinking, I've done it, right, I've passed, I'm in the bag. As long as I've explained it properly, as long as I've followed the structure I'm about to show you, I'm happy days. And now I'm just on to the bonus points: words, alliteration, and rhythm and rhyme. So, introductions, as I just said, the A and the R. So what is it about? First of all, literally what it's about. So I've gone McCrae's poem, The Richest Poor Man in the Valley, literally about a man with not a lot in terms of material worth, but he's still rich in terms of companionship and peace. And then I'm going to say on a metaphorical level, and look how I use the word metaphorical and where I use the word literally to signal to the examiner, make it really clear, really simple. Literally it's about this. Metaphorically, this man represents the futility of chasing a material worth, for it will never define or shape your actual worth as a person. I end with the reader's reaction. What is the reader's reaction? What's the message to the reader? And the writer's message to the reader is it's the internal joy and warmth in our soul that defines a happy life. I'm simply following my AR and the two steps in the about, literal and metaphorical. Then we go on to our cell paragraphs, the same cell paragraphs that we've used again and again and again whenever we've been analysing methods. We first of all put a statement, which is where we put the method we're going to use, but also the purpose of it, why it was there. So to present the value of our self-worth, McCrae uses figurative language, or I could have put it the other way around. McCrae uses figurative language to present the value of our self-worth. We then put our evidence. Now, my evidence in this one is a little bit long because I'm trying to do a couple of things at the same time here. So I'm trying to talk about the simile, also trying to talk about the extended metaphor. So I've got quite a chunky bit. And then we just layer like we've always done. Layer the effect first of all of the first effect we want to say for that figurative language. So I'm going to make a point about how when we compare our exterior to an image of weather, which is changeable and unpredictable, it shows how the facade of our character can be moulded and bent without warning. But I'm not going to stop there. I'm not just going to give one point. I'm going to discuss. I'm going to add a further layer. However, the same way the weather doesn't actually impede our day or emotion, the writer shows us how this changing facade has completely zero impact on the worth of ourselves beyond that changeable exterior. Simple as that. The only other thing I want to add is kind of the next level to that, where you can very happily do what I've just shown you. Cell, 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 cell. One for T, one for S, one for W, one for A, one for R. But you may find that you run out of time, or you may find that there's some points that just don't justify a whole paragraph and they're more just little references. If that's the case, this is an example of what I would be doing. I've got my statement, evidence, layer 1 and layer 2, exactly the same as the previous one. On this one, I've given the example of lies and I've talked about the connotations of lies and how that reflects back to like our warped perception of worth. But then at the end, on that same bit of talking about lies, I'm also going to make the point there about the isolated single rhyme. So you can see that as well as the layers, I've added in my additional method there at that point. Now that is completely and utterly fine. I would struggle to justify a whole paragraph out of the single point I want to make about the isolated rhyme. So I'm just going to pop it in there where it's suitable. Essentially, what I'm basically trying to say is, although you're going to do your ARTSWAR, you're probably not going to give a whole paragraph to each one of those because you're going to run out of time. Give your full paragraphs to the points that you've got loads of layers to, that you can be like where you want to explore it, and you want to get, you've got a really great rich quote that gives you loads of stuff you want to say about it. But when you've just got little points and just one-off interpretations, drop those into your wider analysis so you can get them in, get them done. The examiner can give you the marks for hitting that particular method, but you're not wasting your time trying to squeeze analysis out that just isn't there.